Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for OPE, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome to another episode of the Hana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where the hosts are very disappointed in the Packers. Well, Joe, that sucked. The weather sucked,
Yeah.
the team sucked, the game sucked. The end of the podcast episode. Welcome to the bye week, Packers fans. But,
Yeah.
I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Packers basically did a repeat of the Week 4 game from last season against the Lions. Yeah, I there's not going to be... I honestly have spent the last 15 minutes trying to think of a good for this game. It's a stretch, but yeah, just a whole lot of bad and ugly from the Packers today.
I don't know. There's a couple of bright spots among this shitfest, but
yeah. So before this thing goes lights out on me, Joe, let's get into the good, bad, and ugly. Oh, this is going to be the shortest segment of the day of the podcast history. What was your good that you took out of this game today?
there's probably two that fit the bill the most out of it all, and I'll go with the one so you can at least have the other. I'm assuming we both think the same thing. So I'll go with Jaden Reed. He at least showed up. He was making the plays that needed to be. He racked up over 110. I think he was at 113 yards on 5 receptions or something like that. So he tried.
He was the one receiver tight end that didn't have a crippling drop or misread on a ball today. So, yeah, he goes in the good pile.
And I mean, to add on to him, I would have to give Christian Watson some credit too, because he was, he was making plays. But, we're back to Wicks dropping everything. I know the conditions weren't great, but when they hit you, you can't not have it.
And I saw some people say, like, oh, the throw from Love was behind, blah, blah, blah. You gotta make a fucking play for your quarterback at that point. Like, you can say whatever you want, but dude is playing hurt, trying to help the team. The conditions aren't great. You guys are scraping and clawing for anything you can get. Make the damn catch. Make a play. The Watson one, like, I made a joke on it. I tweeted when he misread that deep ball, like, you're not going to beat the allegations with that play, but outside of that moment, the rest of his game was really solid. He blocked really well. He was reliable on all of his other opportunities. I think the only other one was just he had no chance at the throw, but otherwise I thought Watson had a decent game. And the other side of it is I thought that Josh Jacobs you were getting whatever you want, exactly what you hoped to get from Jacobs, but because of the offensive failings around him, it just negated any impact he had on the game. It's just too bad because he was off to a really good start to the game. They were doing what I said you could do to this Lions defense, is that you can punch them in the mouth. You can punch them back, but the key to it is you've got to keep scoring with them or get ahead of them. And the Packers just pissed that opportunity away, and it's just really disappointing because Jacobs was in line to get a 200-yard rushing day. Like he was gonna just grind out a really massive day on the ground. And even Wilson later on, he was running hard. You saw that, I kind of joked that there is one guy who is playing every snap, like every one of them matters, and that's Wilson, because he's seen Brooks take kind of the RB2 spot from him the last couple weeks. And Wilson is a guy that's like, well, fuck that. Like, I want that spot back. And a little bit of Brooks having a bonehead moment where he didn't go out of bounds in the 2-minute drill. But also, I don't think Wilson's done anything to really lose him spots. I thought he's blocked well in pass pro. I thought he's run really hard when he's gotten his opportunities. And I was really happy to see him, have some movement on the ground. I know Detroit was playing softer at that point, but Wilson runs more like Jacobs. He has a little bit more, I think, top-end burst and speed. And, you saw the effectiveness when you just run right at Detroit. You can get some movement and create some creases on the ground. And it's just really unfortunate that between a lot of the other stuff that's going to come later in the podcast, you just negated what should have been an absolute strength for you today. And it goes back to what we were both talking about while my internet was being a dick punch, where it might have been better if you started Malik Willis, because you would have committed to just ground and pounding this Lions defense. And Willis, might have hit enough passes to, take advantage of Detroit overplaying things. But everything is hindsight 2020. That's the really stupid thing about this game is if you just catch half of the drops, Green Bay might win this game. And, that's the story of the Packers in their 3 losses this year is it's all woulda, coulda, shoulda. And on that note, let's get into the bad, Joe, because there's a lot of bad and a bunch of ugly from this game. What you got first on the docket for bad for today?
I've got one that keeps coming to mind, but every time I bring this guy up as a bad, it seems like, oh, well, PFF says he's the top-rated CB, and that's Keyshawn Nixon. Nixon was just getting beat hard, especially on that touchdown against Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and on a 4th down. He just, I don't know what it was. I get you're playing in motion, but it was like he was only in heartfelt play in that motion for that 4th down conversion for the touchdown to St. Brown. And just later on in the game, it just seemed like he was out of place for everything. And on the flip side of it, I thought Stokes' coverage was good. He was just getting the bad luck of the coverage, that no matter how well a coverage he was putting on the player, they were still able to make plays and catch the ball. So people are going to see that and completely crap on Eric Stokes, but even the announcers were saying that's almost perfect coverage by Eric Stokes. Just the tight end or the receiver went up and made the play. So my first stale of the game is Keyshawn Nixon.
Yeah, and just kind of echo. I saw some people complaining about like how soft the coverage was at different times, and I mean, I don't know what you want Hafley to do there, because you're down your top corner and one of your safeties who would allow you to manipulate your coverage responsibilities. Because if Ja is there, obviously he's a corner. You're able to play a lot more man, and if Evan Williams is healthy, then Bullard can play in the slot, and you have more flexibility in what you can do. And so, Hafley's calling it left-handed, or I'm not sure if Hafley is left, but he's playing offhand. He's calling his defense offhanded, and it really just hamstrings him to what he's comfortable doing in terms of how aggressive he can be in coverage. Because no one wants to hear it, but the one thing you don't want to do is, especially on a sloppy field day, is just give up big plays where no one's in position. You can't come back and make a recovery tackle or anything like that. And like you said, like, the obnoxious thing about it is it wasn't like Goff was throwing these like really, the only really good ball he threw honestly was the touchdown to St. Brown. Other than that, most of his other throws were wobbly. And it just happened that the ball went to the absolute right spot that it had to and stuff. But that's the breaks you catch when you just make all bad you make bad plays in other places. And to coincide with that, my stale for the game is the Packers' penalty problems, and we've been harping on this all season so far. And good teams just don't commit this many penalties. I have issue with some of the calls that were made. I thought, like certain ones were like the Jordan Morgan hold. I thought that was a really weak call, especially when you consider some of the stuff that like Detroit got away with. There was a play where Carl Brooks got pantsed basically, and there was no call and stuff. And like, I just felt there was a real inconsistency to how that was handled, how false starts were handled by each team. But regardless of it all, Green Bay just continues to play such undisciplined football that they put themselves in position to be called for so many penalties. And you can't call yourself a good team if you're constantly behind the chains because of your own errors. And it's just really frustrating. And that was one of the things that I called them out for last week is I was like, you can't be considered a good team if you're this undisciplined. And it was like, oh, like, they're still up. Like, what are you complaining about? I'm like, you're beating the Jacksonville Jaguars by 3, a team that you should be up by way more on, but you're 1 of 4 in the red zone. Similar outcomes today. You're committing penalties that put you, that kill your drives, happen today. And I tweeted out later, I was like, I don't know why so much of this fan base thinks that, oh, yeah, they're making mental mistakes, but we're going to fix it when we play better teams. That's not how this fucking works. You are what you do, what you do repeatedly is who you are. And right now, the Packers are an undisciplined, penalty-prone team. And until they fix that, they're going to be a full tier plus below the Lions. And it's a big reason why they're like, I know this is going to sound fatalist and really negative, but basically they've screwed themselves out of winning this division this season. For all intents and purposes, you're basically counting on 1, winning out the rest of your division games. 2, you've got to win 3 more games than the Lions win the rest of the season. One of them being the head-to-head, because they're 2-0 or 3-0 in the division right now. You're 0-2. You've lost the head-to-head so far, and they're 2 games up on you right now. Which, like I said, because of the division disparity, they're 2.5 games for all intents and purposes ahead of you. So the division is not in your control, and basically Green Bay has to just hope that some of these other teams don't figure their shit out, because they're going to be squeezed out of a wild card spot. And it's a position you solely responsible for putting yourself in.
Yeah, and I agree with you on your assessment with the penalties. There were a couple that were just like, are you really shitting me right now? And what makes it worse is you've got Tom Brady in the booth, and Tom Brady's being a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, and he can't say anything. So he's got to put a positive spin on everything. So it makes it sound even worse than what it is, because he's agreeing with everything the refs are doing, so he
Yep.
doesn't get in trouble. The one that sticks to my mind tremendously is the Ragnow head bob that drew the offsides penalty. That was not a subtle motion.
Yep.
That was not a subtle motion. That was a quick jerk up, and he physically was forcing his hand like it was going to snap the ball. That's textbook false start. And that should have been called as false start, not anything else. That was false start. That's the same crap Josh Myers was getting nailed for. Was it last year or the year
Against
before?
the Broncos. Yep, last year.
Yeah. So if it's a penalty on one side, it's a penalty on the other side. You can't have it, because his was more egregious than what Josh Myers was doing.
The one for me was the one that they called on Keyshawn on the Lions' opening possession of the third quarter, where they called him for a defensive hold. And I'm sure they're going to argue, like, oh, because my whole thing is, I was like, it's all contact within the first 5 yards. And so, 1, you can do whatever. But 2, I know the refs are going to say, like, it's called a hold, so it's different. But if you watch what happened in that game today, like, they had the one play where Carlton Davis did everything but pulled Romeo Dobbs' jersey off, and there was no call on that play. And Nixon did much less. Raymond doesn't even, Raymond doesn't even turn around and look for a flag. Like, I think he was as shocked that he got awarded a penalty on that play. But again, it goes back to putting yourself in this position. I mean, the one that speaks to it is Brian Branch gets ejected from the game for, and Detroit fans can complain about all they want. It was a completely unnecessary hit that checks all the boxes for the things that the league wants to say it's trying to litigate out of the game. The telltale shot of it is whether it's the spider cam look coming over Branch's shoulders and looking into Melton's face mask, or the one that's from like kind of like the end zone where you can see the two players like looking at each other, is Branch looks Melton dead in the face. The ball is not there, and Branch is like, I'm putting my head down and I'm smacking you in the face. And like, it ended up not mattering, but in the moment I was like, you cannot let that slide, NFL. Like, like, I'm sorry, like, Lions fans can complain all they want, but that is the thing from the last 5 years that they're like, we are not letting you get away with anymore. And for Lions fans to be like, this is what they're doing, I'm like, and you see all the DBs, they're complaining about it. And like you said, Brady has to play nice because he's an owner now and shit like that. But like I said, that's the thing that it's like, that is the thing that they're trying to get out of the game. And yeah, I'm just kind of like, I don't know what you're complaining about. But circling back, what happens right after Green Bay gets gifted 30 yards by a bonehead play and post-play decision-making by Brian Branch? False start, back up, you're 1st and 15, and it factors into, what ends up being a missed field goal by McManus. That's the kind of undisciplined shit that just can't happen. And the only penalty that I think was bullshit is the one that they called on Nixon at the start of the game. And that one, LaFleur deserves a dissertation from the referees on what they saw, what they called, because unless Nixon said something that was so egregious that it would never be played except on an NC-17 rating, which is not what they called. It wasn't an unsportsmanlike call. There wasn't unsportsmanlike conduct. It was unnecessary roughness. They called him. So by my eye, they're calling him for running into a coach on the sideline. The only reason he hits the coach is because the Lions player shoved him in the back out of bounds. And it was fucking clear as crystal that he did it. And I'm like, you're seriously calling that? And even, everyone's like, and Brady, that was the most he questioned the call. He was like, we don't see anything. And he's like, I'm not sure what we're supposed to have seen, but yeah, I didn't see anything and stuff. So that one, they deserve a call. But on top of it all, okay, we're pointing out 3 penalties. You still have way too many. You still more than doubled or tripled up the Lions in terms of penalties. And you're not going to win, especially against a team that, one, is disciplined like the Lions. I know that Branch play, and I know what also happened on that Branch play that I'm sure we'll talk about later. But they didn't have any penalties called, and they're a team that plays hard every down. And yeah, just too many mental mistakes by the Packers that they can't overcome because they're not good enough to do that. Like, no team is good enough to keep overcoming a penalty every 3 or 4 plays, but especially not this Packers team that just continues to make mental and physical mistakes as the game goes on.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I don't know if you've played any Maddens recently, but there's always the point in the season where it comes to bye week and a player comes to you and says, well, we would really like a time off, or would you rather work throughout the bye week? Your ass is working throughout the bye week.
Yep.
That would be my feeling right now, because you guys are, like you said, undisciplined, too many penalties, too many boneheaded plays out there. You guys need the work, not the time off.
Yep. And as much as people say, like, oh, they're like so many plays away from being 9-0, you're also a few plays away from being 4-5 right now, because you fucked up the end of the Houston game. You almost completely fucked up the end of the Jacksonville game. And that's a 2-game swing that that shouldn't even have been in question. And so, yeah, like, this team is in a tenuous situation. I do think the bye is at a good time for them, but I totally agree with you. They need to make the most of it, because the majority of it is between the ears shit that they've got to get ironed out if they're gonna, like I said, the division, I'm just counting it as out of their control because Detroit is just playing too well and they have too much of a springboard lead on them right now. you can't even talk about the division. So it's playing for a wild card. You can still attain your goals, of being a Super Bowl contender. But as they're playing right now, this team is not a Super Bowl contender. You just cannot be making this many mental mistakes and dare to be expecting a seat at that table. So you're at the kiddie table right now. A lot of people aren't going to like to hear it, but you keep putting out this quality level of play. That's where you deserve to be sat right now.
I think they need to be set outside on the bench where nobody can see them, because it's really getting sickening with some of this stuff, because it seems like it's the same stuff week in, week out that we're talking about. Penalties, boneheaded plays, Jordan Love's interceptions. Is Jordan Love healthy? It's the same shit over and over again. So, yeah. Let's see. What else can we nail for a stale? God, just trying to think of stuff. What else is there that we can nail?
Fundamentals, tackling was poor again today. They had a lot of opportunities to just get Montgomery down earlier than he needed to be. You gave up on Detroit's opening drive. You get creased on a 3rd and 5 draw play and stuff like that. Just stuff that just can't be. And it's not the front 7 that was injured. It's the back. It was the backs, the DBs that were injured. And so your run fits were bad. The Gibbs touchdown, that's another brain fart moment. Everyone was singling out like, oh, when will Quay Walker get off a block, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't a good Quay game. I'm not even trying to say that. But people who have agendas they want to put on the front burner, you need to learn how defense works. And the ironic part of that Gibbs touchdown on 4th down is it's not Quay's fault. It's one of the 2 golden boys on this defense's fault. It's either McKinney or it's Edge Cooper. I don't know which one of them, but when you call a goal line defense on not the goal line, everyone has to hit the gap. There's an assigned gap for everyone. You had 7 of 8 guys hit the correct gap, and the way you can tell that it's Edge or McKinney is both of them run up the same gap. And the one who's supposed to hit the gap that's inside of Quay, that's who gave up the touchdown. They had that play set. Like, they actually had it. They had 10 out of 11 guys playing their job. One guy fucked it up, and it's a touchdown. It's a back-breaking touchdown for the Lions. And
I'm willing to make a bet on who it probably is, but nobody will say it because he's, it's not the in thing to do. And it's got to be the young guy. That would be a mental mistake for the young guy in Edge Cooper. And nobody will say that because, oh, well, that would go against our narrative on how Quay needs to have less snaps and Edge needs more snaps. So nobody's going to say something like that. I want to call it a bad, but Brian and I kind of talked about this too. It's the pass rush again. But Brian said something, and then it got me thinking that I don't think it is the pass rush. I think it's more the defensive line, the interior defensive line. Because Brian said something about how, because I said that the pass rush seems like it's getting in the pocket, but once they get in the pocket, it's like they lose focus on what they're supposed to do when they get into the pocket. You know what I mean? Where when they're pass rushing in, they get the pressure on the quarterback. Well, then he said, well, yeah, it's like they're going up the field and then back around and pushing the quarterback towards the defensive line. Well, duh, that's part of the job of an edge rusher, is you're supposed to get that pressure up so your interior guys can make the play on it, and the interior guys aren't making the play on the quarterback.
I think today, too, it's a function of what Detroit wants to do is it wants to mash you with its O-line. And so that whole defensive front is, everyone, talks about like play the run on the way to the pass, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, if you get gashed on a couple drives here and there, it's like, okay, you're going to like double down on making sure you play your run fundamentals first kind of thing and stuff. But the other side of it too, and kind of to piggyback of what you and Brian were talking about, is too often this year, it's only one guy on any play who's winning. It'll be like Lucas looks like he's breaking down a tackle here. It's Kingsley is winning a rep here. It's Wyatt winning here. What What happened on the Packers' one sack today? Rashawn and Aaron Mosby both win their reps, and they meet at Goff, and it just happens so fast that Goff doesn't have a chance to step up in the pocket, and it's a big sack. It stuffs a Detroit drive, and so it's so hard to point at any one person. But what I think it is that Wyatt isn't quite healthy. Plus, it's a shitty field condition today, and you're just not getting multiple guys winning at once. The only time it looks like multiple guys are winning is because the other team's running a screen kind of thing and stuff. So, like, I do think that's a function of it. Also, it's hard. It goes back to that point I made earlier where because you're missing Jair and Evan, and that's forcing shuffling on the back end of your defense, Halfley has to call looser coverage, and therefore your pass rush doesn't have as much time to get home on average. So it's all interconnected. And as much as everyone's like, oh, field conditions, blah, 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 it hurts your pass rush too. So I do have a hard, and this is probably the best O line that the Packers have faced this year. So you combine all of that into one, and I have a hard time really questioning the pass rush or whatever kind of thing and stuff. Like, I know Detroit took their foot off the gas, but you did hold this offense, which is a high powered offense, to a respectable totals. Like, the defense did not lose you this game. It was the offense being unable to do anything worth a damn when the game was in the balance. That's what lost you this game. So, like, sure, I would love to see a 5 sack game against an offensive line that matters, i.e., not the Titans' offensive line. But at the same time, like, the Arizona game, I said, I'm not mad that they didn't get a lot of pressures because Arizona wasn't playing a professional offense. They were just like, we're hitting 3 steps and we're just throwing the ball. I don't care if we throw it for negative yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, but we're just like not letting their pass rush even become part of the problem. And today's game, yes, Rashawn had his best game as a pro against the Lions in Detroit last year. And at the same time, you look at the field conditions, game conditions, what Detroit was doing on offense. There's just so much more nuance than what most of the people who are yelling at any one thing, there's more nuance that they want to either admit or wrap their heads around. So I'm it's annoying, but I'm not putting the pass rush in the stale this week, if that makes sense.
Like I said, it's one of those things that I'm starting to understand what I'm seeing a little bit more. That the edges are doing what needs to be done for the most part. They're collapsing the edges. But like you said, not everybody's doing their jobs together. It's like one guy will do one job, the other guy will do whatever else he thinks needs to be done. So this is where I say the whole, well, Saleh isn't going to be having anything to do with the defense thing it needs to be bullshit. I think all voices need to be heard about everything.
Yeah.
And I understand Halfley is doing a heck of a job with what he's got at the moment. But there is nothing wrong with having another voice.
Yep. I agree. Use every resource at your disposal. And honestly, like, I know everyone's like, oh, but he's been there 2 or 3 weeks already. This will be the first time, because he wasn't in the building all off season. Like, this bye week, I'm somewhere between hoping and expecting to see fundamental differences. Whether it's, it is Saleh only, in meetings with LaFleur about, what he can expect defenses to do, blah, blah, blah. Or just Halfley is talking to Saleh behind closed doors, all that kind of stuff. I just don't think Saleh's been around long enough to have a substantial impact. Just because, like, I'm sure he's sitting in on meetings and talking to the coaches and stuff, but the kind of implementations you would get from that kind of higher advanced scouting level, you don't see that in a 1 to 2 week turnaround kind of thing. Those take time. And the bye week and facing a familiar opponent in the Bears coming out of the bye week, that's where I expect to see an impact from Salah's influx into the coaching staff. But getting back on track with Stale, I think honestly that's really it from the Stale, because we've gone over the penalties and the drops. Like the drops are somewhere between Stale and Moldy, but it feeds all into the mental mistakes that are just plaguing this team, and honestly capping them from reaching that next tier of contender that they've shown themselves to be at different times of this season. We've seen this offense operate at a highly proficient and efficient level. We've seen this defense just stop good offenses in their tracks, or good, decent to good offenses for times, for extended periods of games. They're just so inconsistent because they keep making mistakes left and right. And that's the part that at the heart of that is the heart of the issue that this team is facing. And you gotta hope that this bye week gets them out of that rut.
So yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into the Moldy section, because there's too much overlap between the two, because one of the Moldys I was gonna do is the drops. It's pretty sad when Jared Goff, who is supposed to be this horrible quarterback in the elements, who was wearing the two gloves and everything else, had an 81.8% completion rating.
And he was
But
throwing some fucking ducks out there.
yeah, and the Packers, who are supposed to be good in elements and shit like that, I don't even know what was. I think Love was only at like 60 some percent, wasn't he?
Yeah, if that. And Perone said it he tweeted it during the game. He's like, when has Lambeau truly been a consistent home field advantage? Like, it feels like ever since Super Bowl 45, almost anytime the element should be to Green Bay's advantage, they've just gotten their asses kicked by the opposition in the elements. And it's frustrating. It's just really frustrating. And like I said, you can see the signs of what should have been their advantage. Goff didn't throw a pretty pass except for the touchdown throw all game. And you just couldn't take advantage of any of it. And it's so frustrating to see this team that has this storied history of what it's done in Lambeau, all that kind of shit. And it just doesn't matter. Like, you just allow all this stuff that should be an advantage to not mean a damn thing.
Well, and this isn't to add to the constant griping about it, but that's the whole part about this gold package, green package thing. I understand you want to keep the gold package because it's got, that was your way of thanking Milwaukee and all that stuff for, not having to split between County Stadium and Lambeau and all that stuff. But look at what's happening. More visiting team fans are showing up than Packer fans. If you can't go to the Packer games, get off the damn list.
Yep.
There's numerous people on the list that would love to have those lifetime season tickets. But there's also a number of them, and I know a few of them who they get the season tickets, they go to one or two games, and then they sell the rest of them out. Well, that just defeats the whole purpose of any kind of home field advantage.
Yep. Yeah, and I've hemmed and hawed on this topic, and ultimately we're getting to the point where I was 3 the last time the Packers played in Milwaukee. Like, it's been 31 years. Like, I know that I wasn't, like, Bob Harlan will go to his grave saying how appreciative he is of Milwaukee fans, Milwaukee County Stadium, all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I know a lot of people are going to say, like, you're not from here, you don't know, blah blah blah. I appreciate the history. I understand how important that for that period of Packers history Milwaukee was and stuff. But like I said, that's a generation ago. It's almost 2 generations of fans ago at this point. I'm sorry, like, if you're going to create a non-home in home crowd environment, by loyalty. Loyalty has to go both ways. And like you said, Joe, there's a lot of fans who would be willing to go if those tickets were made available. And I don't know if the Packers have the balls to do it, but honestly, I'd be like waiting for 35 years to come around and be like, okay, we've hit like a 5 or a 10-year mark kind of thing, and it's time. Like, we're, you know, people can say this is wrong and stuff like that. You can do shit where you can track IDs or whatever when you scan in for season tickets and stuff like that. And if it don't match, like if it don't match for X number of games in X number of years in a row, you get sent that letter that says like, you've got to fix this, or sorry, like you're not getting to keep the package kind of thing and stuff. And I know it's cold, I know it's heartless, but hey, like the team wants a home field advantage. And honestly, the only reason the Packers won't do it is because to them, that seat is filled. And you know what I mean? And that's the thing is like, that's where it's kind of catch 22 because it's like, that seat is going to be filled no matter what you do. So, you know, I think it's time. I do think it's time. I agree with you. And it's a noticeable problem.
Or if they really want to keep something like that, then go back to playing 1 or 2 games in Milwaukee. I'm sure they could figure something out with what's the field? It used to be Miller. What is it, AmFam now or something like that? American Fam. I'm sure they could figure something out. If they can turn Wrigley Field into a friggin' football stadium for a college football game, I think they can do the same thing in the Brewer Stadium. Then you can at least give them a set of 2 games a year saying, all right, here's your 2 tickets. This is yours. And then the rest of them go back into the pool. And because this year it makes it worse. Because they gave all the gold package ticket holders all the rivalry games.
Yep. And I do hate that. Like, yeah. I just hate that in the most important games of the season, they get first dibs to those tickets kind of thing. And that's the part too where I'm kind of like, you're already showing loyalty to Packers by continuing to do this package. You don't owe them anymore by giving them the best games. Like, there's a lot of layers to this. Honestly, I think they should get an AFC game and like a, you know, out of conference NFC game, even if it's like, you know, the like the third, you know, the matching place team in the other division kind of thing and stuff. But yeah, it's just, I think it's so past its due date that, and the toothpaste is so out of the tube, but there's ways you can shove some of it back in still. But before we go way too far down on that rabbit hole, my main ugly from this game. So we called out the Brian Branch penalty already. How like Detroit fans are stupid to complain about it. The ugly part of that play isn't even the Branch part of it. It's what. Oh fuck. I'm just totally blanking on the ding dong's name. 41 on the Lions. And I say it all the time. I tweet it all the time. The NFL, the NFLPA, they always put out this front that, oh, protect the brotherhood, the players watch out for the players, blah, 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 all that shit. James Houston, that's the fucker's name. They talk big all the time about how, oh, we watch out for each other, the players have each other's back, blah, blah, blah. Then you have shit like the Brian Branch play, or the bullshit that James Houston pulled where he fucking gator rolled Love's bad leg. He knew it was his left leg. He knew what he was doing. He pulls him down by his leg, and he gator rolls his ankle underneath his full body weight. And it's one of those ones where, again, why do you exist, New York Replay Center? Why do you have two referees in the back of the pocket? If you're going to let something that blatant happen, it's just downright dirty on a player-to-player level. Like I said, the NFL trying to say that the brotherhood matters. It doesn't. It's a load of shit for telling fans to shut up about stuff that they don't want you to talk about. And it's a failure on the NFL's referee. Yeah, Houston is going to get some like $15,000 fine, blah, blah, blah. But it's just such a bullshit play. No, it didn't determine the outcome. I'm just happy Love didn't get further injured from it. But it's the kind of play that has no place in the sport. And it's going to continue to happen because the league thinks that a $15,000 fine is sufficient. Until they start suspending guys for doing that kind of shit, which they totally can and should because it's on fucking 4K HD and it's replayed. It's on the live broadcast and it's reposted everywhere on Twitter. It's that kind of shit that that's the part where I'm like, the brotherhood doesn't fucking matter because the league condones this. It allows it, it condones it, it almost promotes it by not levying heavier punishment on players for doing this kind of shit. And that kind of thing should have no place in the game, even more than Brian Branch hitting Melton in the face with his own helmet. That kind of shit has no place in the game.
And it doesn't. It really doesn't. And I know football is a physical sport, but it's physical and then there's beyond physical. And what you're talking about is the beyond physical moment where, there's all these rules about how you can only hit the quarterback from one spot to another. You can't go below or above it and all this stuff. But it seems like you can do whatever the hell you want to when they're on the ground. And it's the same way with any other player. It seems like they can do whatever they want once they hit the ground.
Yeah. And what's doubly stupid about that James Houston play is this thing should have been in fucking every referee's memo this week because what happened last week to Justin Herbert? The fucking who did they play? Oh, I'm totally blanking on who they. But this happened to Justin Herbert last week. Same thing. He's been dealing with a high ankle sprain. Defensive lineman comes, twists his knee underneath the pile, and then this is how you know the league knows they fucked up. The Chargers center sees it happening and just blasts the guy on the ground who's doing it. That guy gets fined like $11,000. The center does not get fined. And that's how the league. And I saw some people. Yes, I do wish someone on the Packers did something about it. I don't know if they saw it happening in real time. Yes, thank you. It was the Titans, but I don't know if anyone. Oh yeah, Saints. Thanks. Sorry, I don't know if any of the Packers O linemen saw it. And also, this isn't an excuse, but they're at 8 penalties at that point. They're probably like, well, fuck, we can't do anything that gets us called for another penalty, kind of thing and stuff. But yeah, that's the one. Like I said, nothing's gonna come out of it because Houston's gonna get some like $11,000 or $15,000 fine, and they're probably gonna do it to Love the next time they play. And it's just part of the game. And I'm like, that's the kind of bullshit that, like I said, I don't believe a word when the NFLPA says like we're all about player safety. We care. The brotherhood cares about each other. Blah blah blah. All that. It's all bullshit. They don't give a goddamn because they'll do whatever they think is needed to win. So that's my absolute moldy of the moldy for this week.
Well, and then to kind of add on that, they're about them being about player safety and everything, but yet they let CeeDee Lamb continue to play in the Dallas game after everybody in the world knew that he was hurt. And instead of somebody stepping in and saying, sit your ass down, they just let him continue going out there and probably made whatever he's dealing with a lot worse. So it's not about player safety. It's about what looks good and what doesn't look good. And I'll say it. I'm going to use my moldy. Jordan Love. And it goes back to what I said earlier. If he's that hurt, sit his ass down. If he can't drive off his front foot because his groin's hurting him, sit his ass down. If he can't get over these stupid mistakes, sit his ass down. Because that's what's hurting the team more often than not. Yes, we get the exciting plays like the throwing into triple coverage against the Rams to Jaden Reed and stuff like that. But we're also getting the boneheaded plays like the 2 interceptions, pick sixes that should have never been thrown. I understand what he was trying to do today with Josh Jacobs, but like I tried to explain it earlier on the live stream, I don't think Jacobs was an active participant in that play. He was supposed to just be purely pass block, and he just happened to get out there. He wasn't ready for that ball, and the safety read it 100%. And now this isn't just a Jordan Love thing.
It's an organizational top-down thing. Yeah.
Right.
It's
But no, this other part of it that I'm going to say isn't a Jordan Love thing. The throwing into double coverage stuff that gets a player hurt thing. So yeah, he took a chance on the throw to Melton, and Branch went way too far with it. But we saw it earlier in the Saints game where Olave went across the middle and got absolutely crunched because David Carr threw it right to him. Right in a spot that is a dangerous area. So you got to put that kind of stuff on a quarterback too, because he needs to be seeing what kind of coverage is out there right then and there. He needs to know what he's throwing into. He can't allow his players to take, or his receivers to take hits like that. If, going back to what you said, they're about player safety. But Jordan deserves to be in the Moldy this week because, like I said, if he's hurt, sit his ass down. If he's struggling making reads, sit his ass down.
yeah, and that was when my internet was dropping out really bad. But I know Andy Herman tried to like not excuse the play, but kind of defend him where Love is lined up with Zach Tom. He can't see Kirby, and he can only see Jacobs and stuff. But Tom Brady was absolutely correct. Is like it's 2nd and 1. The play is just gone to holy hell at that point. Don't and even Brady said like I understand what Jordan's thinking. Like I can get it to Jacobs, and we can possibly pick up like 10 to 15, and we'll get a first down, and but that's a lot of hypotheticals. Just chuck the thing out of bounds at that point. Live to play another day. He almost did the same thing right the play before Wicks dropped what should have been a touchdown. He almost made the same mistake where it's like just throw the thing, just throw it away kind of thing. And like I keep playing that clip of Mike Holmgren where I think it's a 2nd-year Brett Favre in Green Bay, the one where it's on every Brett Favre video. It's the one where Holmgren's going throw it away, throw it away, throw it away, and Brett throws an interception. I think it's against the Redskins, and Holmgren is just left going, why did he do that and stuff? And I think it's the one where there's a young Steve Mariucci walking in the background up the sideline, and Holmgren goes, make the switch, change the quarterback, and then he doubles back and is like, never mind, no, don't do it. But he's got to know he's effing up kind of thing and stuff. And it's that kind of stuff where I understand what Jordan is doing. I understand that he's also seeing like, hey, guys are messing up, guys are dropping passes on plays that we should have had. No, the throw to Brooks wasn't perfect, but you'd like to have that one back. Tucker dropping that 3rd down pass was totally out of character. That was the play right before the what's his face? McManus missed field goal. You had the drop by Dobbs that didn't really matter because they ended up moving the chains the next play. But you go through that and it's like, oh, like I've got to make this next play because everyone else is having a rough time, so I'm going to be the guy to step up. And it's like, you don't need to do that in this offense. You have so much talent at your disposal. I know that it hasn't been going your way in a lot of spots, but you've got to trust the guys around you and take the easy plays and stuff. And like I said, people don't, people have their biases against Brady. I actually think he's okay. I do agree with you that he's hamstrung by his whole ownership stake, and like I do kind of think it's stupid that he's announcing games with all the limitations on him because of his minority ownership stake. But I actually think he's not bad at the job. I joked about it early. Everyone was like, "Oh, he was so bad week 1." I was like, he's an awkward guy. He's kind of a dork, and so it was always going to take him some adjusting. But I refuse to believe that the guy who made his career on being the most prepared player on either team was not going to at least be decent as a TV announcer, as a color commentator. And people don't like hearing the truth. And all the stuff, the critiques he was making about Jordan's game, they were all correct. And you can hear, like, if you listen to it with a unbiased against Brady view, you can hear in his tone that he wants to like Jordan's game so much. You can hear that he's like, he is so close to being so good right now, kind of thing. But you can just hear the pain every time he sees Jordan, like, he should have thrown that ball away 2 seconds ago. He should have just taken that pass right there. And like him or not, Brady is the guy that maximized knowing when to take a shot and when to check it down. That was Rodgers' biggest failure, is he never could get out of quickly going to the check down when it was the more efficient option. He was always going big game hunting. And you can just hear it in Brady's broadcast where he's like, it's there. Like, you can hear him almost like trying to like yell into Love's ear, like, just do this kind of thing and stuff. And yeah, like, he's got to be better. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. And like I said, you can't grade quarterback play on a curve, but the pick six just completely muddies what was a solid, good game from Jordan outside of it. I thought he, other than that pick six, was pretty damn good, given the elements, the drops around him. I thought, but, and that's the thing, is that a pick six, it's an F. It's like when you're a B plus student and you get that one F and it drops you to a C student. That's how GPAs work. That's how playing quarterback works. You can't just ignore one bad mistake like that when it is, like you said, Joe, totally unnecessary, when the correct option is just dirt the ball or throw it out of bounds at that point. Take the safe option, understand the game situation, and just live to play the next play.
I think I speak for the whole group by saying the only reason you're sucking up to Tom Brady is because he's a Wolverine alum.
But yeah, like, he's got to be better. I agree with you. He's got to be better.
He does, and that's what puts him in the moldy. Is it? And I'm sorry I didn't get any examples because I was busy doing other things, but there have been quarterbacks in the past that have been able to break out of that gunslinger mentality. They don't but it's not like a complete flip.
Yeah.
They just start to learn where, okay, I can gunsling it here, but I know I got to pull it off here.
Two of his contemporaries are that guy, Mahomes, and Allen. You know, Allen has like one interception on the season, and he's been a turnover magnet his whole career. So, and we saw Jordan do this the second half of last season. So, yeah, I know some people are like, is the extension of mistake, blah, blah, blah. It's only a mistake if he spirals down, and I don't think he's going to. I do think it's partly playing hurt, partly because he's trying to compensate for guys not making plays around him. But the guy, I do think he is more the guy who just played almost lights out down the stretch last season than he's been this inconsistent turnover machine to open the season so far.
Let's see. Is there anything else we want to talk about as a moldy? Well, I do. I want to bring this up because it just popped up on my Twitter. It's from Matt Schneidman, and the reason I'm bringing it up is it's not a shut the fuck up moment. It's not. I wish it was, but it's not. But he goes 5 quick thoughts after rewatching the game. 1, Eric Wilson's tackling was bad, and he puts it in like asterisk. It's bad. I know it was wet, but Elton Jenkins was brutal snapping. Now this one, I'm going to agree but disagree. While yes, he had some issues when it came to snapping, like shotgun snaps. Uh-oh, I just lost Mike again. While he had issues snapping shotgun snaps, I put those a little bit more on Jordan, because even Brady was pointing that out, that the snaps were hitting Jordan in the same spot on every snap. So it was a consistent snap Jordan just wasn't adjusting his footwork, and that's why he kept losing the ball off the snap. It was it was snapped right to his left knee, and it kept bouncing right off his left knee. Brady said it. I can't even think who was with Brady. I don't know who's broadcasting with Brady, but they said it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I forget. I don't know if it's Burkhardt or yeah.
But so the snapping, I don't put on more Elton Jenkins. I think Jordan just didn't adjust for it. Number 3, Josh Jacobs is probably their best offensive player, but big deficits will, with plenty time left, render him useless as runner. Have to avoid ones like in Vikings Lions losses. Number 4 is four third down drops. All would have been first downs. They preceded a punt, made field goal, missed field goal on a failed fourth down, and then he throws this one in here. Tom Brady just belly laughs after every good play. So, all the things that he says there make a ton of sense. The drops hurt.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs is probably MVP of the team. I disagree with the Jenkins one just because I don't think it's so much him at the snaps. It's just Jordan wasn't adjusting to receive the snap. But then again, I haven't went back to rewatch the game. I'm just going off of what I saw during the live. But yeah, and then Eric Wilson's tackling was bad. So everybody who was praising Eric Wilson for the other games really had a wake up call in this game.
Yeah, and the snap thing, I do think I think the part where Brady kind of screwed up saying it is Elton was snapping better most of the game. Those 2 snaps were his 2 worst by far, though. And Brady is right that they both hit the same spot, but also as Elton, and that's the thing that's so baffling. I know he hasn't played a whole game at center in like 3 years, but we've seen him play really well at center, and I it's on him, it's on Love, blah blah, all that kind of stuff. It just goes to show, like, for me, it's more like it's just unfortunate that it happened when it happened, and they didn't lose the game because of it, but it was more to me a microcosm of why they lost the game. They just lost the details at the worst time possible, and that was just the last time that they did it in this game. And that's why you lose games to good teams is you no matter how talented you are, if you're making over a dozen mental mistakes a game, you're not going to win. I don't care how good you are compared to the other team. It's definitely not going to happen if you're on even tier from a talent perspective. So, yeah, lots for this team to grow and learn from over the bye. But we could keep circling back on these points all night, Joe. I'm pretty over it at this point. You got anything else?
I do kind of have a bad, and it's not so much a bad, but I wish he would have done something different. And so it really doesn't fit in a stale or a moldy, but on one of the punts returns by Jaden Reed, I understand he fair caught it because he wasn't sure on the footing, but he was wide open. There was
There was no one
nobody
within
around
20.
him.
I know exactly what. There was no one. It was oh shit. Yeah, it was like the first or second punt he fielded in the third quarter, and it's just like there is no one fucking there. Like there is no one there.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, that'd have been such a boost. But it is what it is. Uh, so yeah, that's about all I got for this game. I do just want to throw out there again that this episode will release on Tuesday. Tuesday is the election day. Please get out and vote. Do what it is for you. What we have our rights to do. Go out, vote, make your voice heard. I always believe you don't have a right to bitch about anything if you don't go out and use your vote. So go out, vote.
Yep. So that's going to do it for us tonight. Please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. Blog posts, streams of the episodes. I'm trying to think of something to write over the bye week. I don't want to do just state of the team that everyone does and stuff. So gonna try to get creative with it, and I'll hopefully have something for the readers out there this week. Most importantly, check the shop out, check out the merch. Please support the channel. New merch out, so please continue to check it on a regular basis. Follow the podcast on social media apps at _Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram, and then just search Ohana Packers Edition on Facebook. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting app. We ask that you give us a like and a subscribe, and all of your comments. We want to hear all of it so that we produce the content you're looking at. But at least they're in playoff position at this point, but they've got a lot to improve on if they want to make the playoffs and make any kind of noise if they do make the playoffs. So a lot of learning, a lot of development, but the bye does come at a good time for especially the young guys on this team. Maybe you'll see more from like a Kitana Oladapo or a Teron Hopper coming out of the bye. You hope that Edge Cooper is kind of moving into more of a starter slot out of the bye. And you're hoping that guys like Jordan, Evan Williams are able to come out of the bye healthy. But we'll cover all of that as we move through this week and prep for Chicago in week 11. I can do math. It's late on a Sunday, but I will try to do math still. But that's it. That's Iowa Joe. I might go Pack Go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for OPE. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for OU. Know who wanna go.